I'm honored to be here and participate in the 8th annual CSR Forum in Egypt. Usually my talks start with a dad joke. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept, but it's a joke that is designed to embarrass your children because it's so bad in the terms of humor. But I couldn't think of a bad joke that would translate really well. So for my children, and they always watch my talks, I'll just say, Daddy flew all the way to Egypt, and he couldn't write a new joke for you because his arms were so tired. That's the joke. So I appreciate all of you staying to hear me talk. I really am going to condense my talk into a 2-hour talk, so it won't be very long. So, thank you for staying. What do you think of when you hear the word janitor? What image do you have? Why is it that when we talk about business hierarchy, the janitor is typically seen as the lowest position? Why do we devalue such an important part of the world? Janitors keep our spaces clean so we can be healthy. The janitorial business is large. In America, there's over 2.16 million people working in the cleaning industry, over $61 billion in annual revenue, and there's many, many different janitorial businesses. The commercial cleaning business also has some stigmas. The average janitorial business loses half of its customers in a year and has to regain them. The average janitorial business in America turns over its employees 200% every year. Why is it that we see this industry in this way? I'm not asking these questions and sharing this data with you to make anyone feel bad. I'm pointing this out because my feelings about the world and people shows up in the work that I do. My values are deeply embedded in my business. Janelle Monáe, an American songwriter, said it well when she said, "I was raised to treat the janitor with the same respect that I treat the CEO." Much of my story, the story you're going to hear today, is about my belief that all workers, all people, are entitled to dignity. They're entitled to being a part of something bigger than themselves. They're entitled to contribute to a better world. They're entitled to have aspirations. And they're entitled to hope. My journey is about creating that hope through for-profit business, a small, well, eventually it became a much larger for-profit business, but started off as a small business. My story is driven by the belief that for-profit business not only can, but should drive the positive social change we need to see in the world. My journey is about convincing small and mid-sized business owners and leaders that we should hold ourselves accountable to reducing harm and making the world a better place. That we should consider profit. We should never consider profit without considering all stakeholders that will be affected by our efforts. Capitalism is evolving, and we are leading the movement. By being here in this room right now, you are calling for a new type of exchange. A type of exchange that throws away the old notion that someone has to win and someone has to lose. Throws away the idea that the highest good is making the most money or taking the most. This new idea of exchange allows for all participants to benefit, and even benefits non-participants, people that don't have a voice, such as future generations, such as our planet. My story is about creating a world where the janitor can hold his head up as high as the CEO. In 1999, my father bought a small janitorial service in Shelbyville, Kentucky. This is where I'm from. Kentucky, chicken. Yeah. Kentucky Fried Chicken. He bought a small janitorial service in Shelbyville, Kentucky. He passed away 18 months after he purchased that business. I was working on a PhD. I was in college working on a doctorate in literacy and rhetoric. I was studying language. I had no idea about business. That's me and my father. I took over the business, left college, and I walked into a small business that had over $800,000 in long-term debt, that had 30 employees, that had 15 clients, was losing over $100,000 a year, and was using credit cards as operating capital. It was fortunate that I was studying literature, because I had no idea what I was walking into. That helped. What also helped was the fact that I wanted to be a teacher. So my motives were different than the traditional business owner. My motives had always been to help people, to teach people. So I think that this afforded me an opportunity, perhaps, and a way of doing things that maybe the traditional business owner didn't have. So what did I do? I went and I met with all of my employees. And I made a commitment to them. I committed that I would never ask them to do something that I wouldn't do myself and that I didn't do myself in those first years of running the company. I cleaned the toilets with them. I worked right beside them. I wasn't very good at it. They would ask me to stop sometimes. But I did it with them. And I earned their respect because I was right there with them. Not only did I work beside them, but I came to know their families. I showed up in judicial courts, defending them. I stood behind them when people died in their families. I was there when marriages happened, when children were born. And at that point, I could remember everybody's name. I miss that. They were also there for me. They were patient with me, and they believed in me. As I began this process of trying to figure out how to marry my heart and my values with my business, and to align my business with me. And that's what I began working on. I call this an intuitive approach. At this stage in the company, it was intuitive. I didn't have a plan, I didn't have a program, I just did what I thought was right. And that carried us for a number of years. We grew. Fast forward to 2010. We now have 200 employees. And I decided to take all of my leaders out to the woods, to a retreat. And I asked them one question. I said, how did we go from 30 employees to 200 employees? What happened? What made us different than all the other janitorial services that go out of business so frequently? And I didn't realize it, but in that moment, we were creating our core values. We were understanding the heart of our company. Because the answer we came up with, the reason we were succeeding, was because we cared about one another. That was what my leaders told me was the reason that we were successful. We cared about one another. In that moment, we began to become more intentional about what we might call, we didn't call it at this point, our social mission. We eventually get there. And I'll get to that in a couple of hours. Just wait. We were doing it intuitively. And then I asked myself and my leaders, well, if this is the reason we're successful, if we're successful because we care about one another, how do we make that part of the company? How do we implement that into policy? How do we implement that into procedure? How do we make that part of the way we do business? We couldn't pay janitors a very high salary. The market wouldn't bear it. Now, we fought to pay them more, to pay them better than my competitors. But we asked ourselves, what can we do to make their lives better? What do we have the ability to do to make their lives better? Because we believed that if we do this, we will succeed. We will do well. So, one day, this goes on for a decade, I fly out to California, which is way far away from where I am in the United States. It's on the West Coast. And I go out there and I'm introduced to a new way of thinking about business. I'm introduced to a new way of having meetings. Meetings that allow all voices to be heard. Meetings that empower all levels of employees. And I also started meditating, which was scary for some people. So I come back to Kentucky, and in my office I have a meditation cushion where I sit and I reflect. I changed the way we do meetings. We now have process meetings. Everyone has a voice. And it's a new way of doing business. And in my heart, I know what we're doing is right. And about a month later, my human resource manager comes into my office. I was expecting this. And she says, "Scott, what are you trying to do?" And I did my best to explain how I felt that we can run a business where people are open and transparent and kind to one another, and that we can work as a team, and that we will succeed economically and physically. Our physical well-being will be strong, and our team capabilities will be strong, that we can do this together. And I talked and talked and talked, and at the end of it she said, maybe. And she leaves. But before she walked out the door, she made sure to look at me and go, "I just want you to know that you're scaring everybody in the business." My employees were worried about this new approach. They were worried about this change. Well, that day, I had reservations to go to a place called the Festival of Faiths in Louisville, Kentucky. And it's a beautiful celebration of all faiths, all types of faiths. And that year, the topic was compassion in business. So I ran over to my manager's office and I said, "Come with me to this. Maybe it will help you understand." So we went. And at this conference, our mayor spoke, a neuroscientist from Stanford University spoke about the benefits of kindness and compassion in organizational dynamics, and how this actually changes brain waves, changes the way people think when they're in these sorts of environments. And there was a leader of a major university who had decided that kindness and compassion and altruism, that was the way she wanted to run her university. So at the end of it, I raised up my hand and I said, "Hey, I want to run a business in this way. I want to do this." And all the panelists came to me after the discussion and wanted to know what I was doing with this little janitorial service. And as we were driving back to the office, my human resource manager looks at me and says, "I get it. I want to be a part of this." I had my first follower, and she believed in this way of doing business. So we began. 2014, I took 10 of my leaders to a conference at Case Western Reserve University called Flourish and Prosper. There was a Nobel Peace Prize winner there speaking as a keynote speaker. The purpose of this conference was to talk about business taking on the responsibility and being the driver for positive social change. And I took my leaders to see this. And in this moment, I met a man named J. Cone Gilbert. He ran a nonprofit in the United States called B Labs, B Corporation. B Lab created a 200-point assessment that is a certification program that puts a stamp on businesses that are operating in the highest ethical manner, that are considering all stakeholders as they go about doing their business, and that are having a positive social or environmental impact. A 200-point assessment that turns over every stone within your organization. I met the person who had created this, and I said, that's what I want my company to be. What we were doing intuitively up to that point, now we had a roadmap. We had a path to take to become more intentional. So we did the B Corp certification. We met every Tuesday for 1 year, and we turned in the 360-page response to the inquiry, and we became the world's first B Corp certified janitorial service. And we became the second B Corporation in the state of Kentucky. And we were proud of that. During that time, one of our government officials noticed the good work we were doing and asked me to help him get a bill passed within our state, to get a law passed to recognize public benefit corporations as legal entities in the state of Kentucky. This legislation would protect owners from any litigation from shareholders as they make decisions about pursuing their social or environmental mission that could possibly adversely affect profit. It also protects investors who invest in a company because of the good that they're doing in the world. The investors can hold leadership accountable to pursuing the environmental and social mission. We got the legislation passed. In July of 2017, Kentucky became the 33rd state in America to pass public benefit corporation legislation. And my company became the first public benefit corporation in the state of Kentucky. And again, we were proud. We developed a model to where we identified a social mission within our organization. Our social mission was to provide opportunity and access for our workers and to help the neighborhoods where they live thrive. We determined a social mission. Now the fun part here, the interesting part here for me intellectually, because what I'm really talking about is a little different than much of the subject matter around socially conscious businesses. I'm talking about an existing business converting into this model. I'm talking about an existing small to mid-sized business that says, I want to be a part of this movement. And that's what we did. So first we identified a social mission. And the fun part here is when you can come up with a social mission and programming to execute that mission that provides a direct benefit to your organization. Because the idea here is to be a sustainable for-profit company that is doing good in the world. It is not an or, it is an and. And to figure out the trick into doing that. So for us, in the janitorial business, one of the biggest problems is high employee turnover and retention. So that was the problem I wanted to solve. And I thought to myself, gosh, can I solve this problem by incorporating a social mission into my organization? And the answer was yes. So I thought about what sort of programming could I offer my people, my employees. And then I realized very early on that as a leader, it's not always wise to decide what you think people need. Sometimes it's wise, well, always it's wise, to ask them what they need. What do they want help with? How can I help them? So we did a survey, and we asked the employees, how can we help you? The responses were, we want to learn to be healthier. We want to learn to eat better. We want access to cultural activities that we can't normally afford. We want our children to have educational opportunities. We want the opportunity to feel good at work. So we went to task with that, and we tried to figure out ways to incorporate that into our business model. The idea being that the successful execution of a social mission will make our employees more engaged, will make them more likely to be happy about their work, will allow them to see cleaning toilets as more than just cleaning a toilet. They will feel like they are part of something bigger, and this will lead to successful operations. This will lead to people doing well at their jobs, which will in turn lead to a profitable company, which will allow us to have the capital and resources to reinvest in our social mission. And this is the intuitive model that we came up with. And it worked. A few years ago, we bought a building in a distressed neighborhood in Louisville, Kentucky, and remodeled it, a very impoverished neighborhood. We were able to do that because our company was thriving because of our social mission, because of the work that we were doing. We created interesting partnerships. We've heard the word partner many times up here. We partnered with a nonprofit organization. Remember when the employees said they wanted access to fresh foods? So we determined we can either create our own programming as a company, we can create it with our own resources and our own drive, or we can partner with an existing community group that is already doing this work. And in this case, we partnered with a nonprofit that provides fresh fruit and vegetables from local farmers that needed to sell their product. And every payday Friday, our employees came to work and received 2 weeks of fresh fruit and vegetables, enough for a family of 4. And we incorporated that into our business plan. And people appreciated that. In fact, not only did our employees come to eat the vegetables and take the vegetables, but they also wanted to work and be a part of it and sharing it with one another. They felt inspired. They felt like they were part of something bigger. They liked being a part of the programming. We also incorporated different family programming, free family programming, educational opportunities, fun opportunities for our employees to engage and come to know all levels of leadership within our organization, and to bring their children and give their children access to things like the orchestra, to listen to an orchestra play for the first time in their lives, or to go see a play for the first time in their lives, and to give them those opportunities. And we incorporated that into our business model. In the end, what did we begin to see? We began to see a very high customer retention rate. The work was getting done better. The people were happier. And in 2018, we were recognized by B Labs as a Best in the World honoree in terms of impact. Real Leaders 100 is much like the Fortune 500 for impact companies in the United States. And last year, my company was named number 71 in America in terms of impact. We were a little company, but we have a big heart. And at the end of this, as we hear people talk today and tomorrow, I'm reminded of what some people that were very much smarter than I had to say. And that is, oftentimes we get caught up in lofty concepts. We get caught up in large goals. And sometimes we can feel frustrated, and sometimes we can feel like our work and our efforts are futile, that the change isn't coming fast enough, that what we want to see in the world isn't happening quickly enough for us. And I'm reminded that at the end of it, what's most important is the interpersonal dynamic, the relationships between human beings. One person helping another person. One small company saying, I want to do business in a different way. To me, that is what we are here to inspire other businesses to take on this work, to think differently. Because it is an amazing feeling to see somebody's life change right in front of you. And it's worth far more than a profit and loss statement. As we moved on, we began to form unique new partnerships, and I developed a new model to where we partnered with nonprofits before we even got a customer. What we started doing, I'll give you an example. We partnered with a nonprofit, a community organization that helps women who are in recovery from opiate addiction. And they have babies, children that are 3 years or younger. We partnered with this organization because our problem is we need employees that care. This nonprofit provides help for these women to stay off of drugs, helps them find housing, helps keep them mentally strong. But they don't have jobs, and they don't have transportation to get jobs. So we went to our public transportation group, and they gave us 2 vans free. We offered transportation for these women to get to work. We offered them a fair wage. And we formed this partnership, and we went to a customer and we said, you need your building cleaned anyway. You're going to pay someone to do it. Why not use a company that is helping people? It's very hard to say no to that. It's good business. The big good and the little good. And it works. Today, we have no debt. I paid off the loan that my father took out to buy the business. We have 121 clients now. I have 839 employees. And we have operating capital that we work with every day of $1.2 million. We succeeded because of a social mission. We did not succeed and say we would like to incorporate a social mission. There is a difference. So,
hello, I'm Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher.
This is our mayor.
To be part of your program today. As a city of compassion, Louisville welcomes and supports for-profit businesses that commit to doing good in the world for our community and the environment. Consumers more and more are demanding companies with socially responsible missions, and we know that by supporting forward-thinking business leaders like Scott Collins and Canopy, we are investing in the future of business. So when you think of social entrepreneurship, I hope you think of Louisville, Kentucky.
This is our mayor, who is very proud of the work that we're doing and wanted to send a message for all of us here. So, how can an existing business incorporate a social mission? I'm going to go through this briefly. This is the meat of the presentation. First, identify a social mission. So in my story, you heard me talk about that. What is it you want to do? And as you're considering your social mission that you want to incorporate, think about what are the leaders passionate about. Also, consider what's happening in the neighborhoods and the communities where you are. What are the needs, the immediate needs, where your business is operating? And survey your employees. What would they like to be a part of? Because a social mission has has to resonate, has to include all levels of your company. Everyone needs to be behind it. So survey your employees and then try to be as specific as possible with your social mission. Don't say, I want to make lives better. That's very difficult. Be more specific. For us, it was we wanted to provide financial and physical health for our employees. Financial and physical health for our employees. Also, consider the methods of execution. How are you going to create the programming to execute your social mission? Are you going to create your own program internally using your own resources? This can be done. Or are you going to partner with community organizations that are already good at doing the work you want to do? Think of those things. If you're going to develop your own programming, make it simple, effective, and measurable. Don't try to take on too much in the beginning. Create simple programming. Partner with a community organization. You can utilize that company and their data because they're already measuring it typically. The community organizations already have those in place. Evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of your partnerships, of what you're doing. For us, we came up with a hierarchical scale around partnerships to determine which ones are the best. So we looked at each partnership and we asked ourselves, does the program have a targeted social benefit that is consistent with the stated social mission and a direct financial benefit? I will give you an example of this. We partner with an organization that provides health education to our employees and we clean their building. Direct financial benefit, direct social benefit. That is the highest in the hierarchy. Next is the program has a targeted social benefit consistent with our stated social mission and a potential financial benefit. So this is perhaps the story will be told. Perhaps they will help us market. Perhaps they will talk to other people around the work that we're doing. Not necessarily an immediate direct financial, but potentially a financial benefit in the future. Third is the program has a general social benefit, not necessarily linked to our specific target, but a direct financial benefit. And then finally, it has a general social benefit and a potential financial benefit. So each partnership we ranked in this hierarchy to determine where we wanted to put our energy. Because ultimately, we knew that to succeed and to make this viable for the long term, we needed to hit that sweet spot to where we're having a direct, measurable benefit and financial benefit. Next is engage your employees. Tell the stories. Involve them in the good work that you do. Because remember, that is your biggest asset. And that gives people the feeling that their work means so much more. We clean toilets for a living. And yet our organization has a turnover rate that is a fraction of the industry average. 1/6 of the industry average, our turnover. It's gone down consistently. And that's because we've involved our employees in the good work we're doing in the world. And they're often the recipients of it. Also, don't be ashamed to share the story with the public. Tell the good work we're doing because it's our responsibility as business leaders to inspire other business leaders to do this work. This is no time to be humble. Share the stories and challenge others to do the same. Also, hold your leadership accountable to the successful execution of the social mission the same way you hold them accountable to operational efficiencies and profitability. Hold them accountable to doing the good in the world the same way you hold them accountable to working well and making money. So all this led me to do something else because I have so much time. That's a joke. So I started a nonprofit in the state of Kentucky a year and a half ago. And it was inspired because as I went around the state to try to get the public benefit corporation legislation passed that I mentioned earlier, I noticed there were small business owners all around our state that were intuitively doing good. They were good people running small and mid-sized businesses, a barber in a small town that gave free haircuts to single moms right before school started. Good business people. But they were still in that intuitive phase of doing good. They were in the beginning of their journey. And I also remembered that my state is one of the most impoverished states in the United States of America. We have some of the lowest education levels. We have a high mortality rate. We have financial instability. We have addiction problems. We have obesity problems. So I thought to myself, what if my state became the best state, had the best environment for socially responsible businesses? What if we got laws passed to inspire companies to come from other states to do work in our state? And that's how the idea of Canopy came about. We're a nonprofit organization that supports socially and environmentally responsible businesses in Kentucky. Our goal is to make Kentucky first in the good business movement. We're going to do it through three ways. First, we're going to educate. We're going to travel around the state, sharing the stories of successful businesses that have incorporated a social or environmental mission through videos, through podcasts, through seminars. We're going to create a consumer consciousness around buying from businesses that are doing good. We're going to create a business-to-business consciousness. We're going to share stories of successful business models so people can learn how to put this into their small and mid-sized businesses. And we're going to create a certification program called Canopy Certified that is essentially a program that is designed to take a company where it is, but has the desire to do good and move them through the process of intuitively doing good to intentionally doing good, taking them to the space where they are actually measuring their social impact, taking them to the space where they are participating in collective impact. My dream is hundreds of companies across my state working in unison to overcome poverty and addiction. And then that's what Canopy is going to work towards. As we begin to collect data from all of our Canopy certified companies, we will go to our lawmakers and we will ask for benefits for the companies that are operating this way. We would like tax breaks, procurement benefits. We would like to be honored, because when we do that, when we have those benefits, and when we have a strong network of businesses operating this way, we're going to go steal companies from the West Coast, from California, and bring them to my state so we can be win. That's what Canopy is. I went through all these. So, at the end of this, our goal is to spread this movement across the state of Kentucky. And the idea is, part of the argument is that this movement is inevitable, that this evolution of capitalism is inevitable. You've heard some people talk today about very high-power people talking about how this is a necessary evolution, that this is occurring across the globe, that people are thinking this way. And we have a generation of people entering the workforce. We have a generation of people that want to work for and buy from companies that are thinking this way. And globally, it is the largest generation in the history of the world. And this is what they want. So earlier in someone's talk, they mentioned Mr. Fink with BlackRock. And essentially he said that if you're not thinking this way, within 15 years you will be a dinosaur. It's time. It's good business. So, as we spread across the state, I wanted to leave you with one of the famous people from my hometown where I live. His name is Muhammad Ali, except he was a boxer. It's the repetition of affirmations that leads to belief. And once that belief becomes a deep conviction, things begin to happen. Where is our conviction? What is our conviction as small and mid-sized business owners? What are we prepared to do? To me, it is our responsibility to make the positive social changes we need to make. And I'm prepared to take that calling. And I hope that each of you can walk away from here and inspire others to do the same. Because we can change the world. Muhammad Ali came and visited here in 1964. He's a great man. He's buried a few blocks from my house. I'm very proud to have been invited to your amazing country and your amazing city, and I'm humbled to be here. And I hope that I offered you something interesting and some wisdom. But what inspires me most is to see that this movement, this way of thinking, transcends country lines. And that we believe in this together. So thank you for letting me share with you.
أستاذ حسن النهارده يعني الحقيقة كرم كتير، بس آخر التكريمات النهارده بالتأكيد هو تكريم أيضا مستحق. تكريم السيد سكوت كولمز. نشكر حضراتكم شكرا جزيلا، وفي انتظار حضراتكم بكرة إن شاء الله باكر بإذن الله. شكرا.